Hello everyone, this is Refresh and I'm here to take a look at Ultra Pro's Magic the Gathering Deck Protector sleeves, and this is for M14. In particular, we have some genre art here, but these sleeves have for very long been Ultra Pro's main style of illustrated sleeves, and these are almost entirely out of print. However, because there's so many were produced, you can still find a lot of this style of sleeve available for sale with art, both from Magic the Gathering and with other licenses that Ultra Pro had. I know that these sleeves were used also for the Return to Ravnica block as well. Like a lot of illustrated sleeves, these are a bit pricier, and this package in particular costs $8.99 retail, and for that you're going to get 80 sleeves, which is an average of about 11 cents per sleeve. That's expensive. You're not really going to want to buy these types of sleeves unless you really like this art. But if you want some illustrated art sleeves and these sleeves have the art that you're looking for, then sometimes it's worth buying it just because you like the art that much. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's inside. As you can see, the sleeve has a glossy, smooth back and a glossy front as well. Like a lot of these Ultra Pro sleeves, these old ones have this very visible hologram on them, and they more recently went to clear ones, but with a lot of these old sleeves you're going to find these opaque holograms on them. Let's count to make sure that there are 80 sleeves here. That's exactly 80 sleeves. Now to check the thickness, 80 sleeves comes in at 1.8 millimeters, and that is 225 millimeters per sleeve, or 112.5 millimeters per face. Now to check the dimensions, these sleeves are 66 millimeters wide by 91 millimeters tall. Now let's see how a card fits. I have a Chandra Bold Pyromancer card here. Okay, it's a pretty snug fit on the sides. There's not much wiggle room at all. There is just a little bit of distance here between the opening of the sleeve and the top edge of the card. This particular card is a little bent, so it definitely opens up that top edge. So I'm going to try a different card that's a little less bent and hopefully show you what a representative sleeve of this sort should look like. As you can see, when the sleeve is less bent, the opening is much smaller. It's still a little bit open, you can just see the top edge of the card, so it's not perfect protection at the top, but it is much better if you don't have a very bent card. Now it's time for the sleeving test. I'm going to sleeve this 60 card deck into 60 of these sleeves and see how long it takes. Ready, set, go! Okay, it took 3 minutes and 2 seconds to sleeve these 60 cards, and that's a not that fast speed of 3.03 seconds per card sleeved. You could really feel that there was a little bit of resistance to the cards going to the sleeves as you were putting the cards into them. It wasn't immense, but it was noticeable, and at one point it caused me to nearly bend a card because I was a little bit too hasty to try to get the card in the sleeve. So you should be careful when sleeving with this particular style of Ultra Pro sleeve. Other than that, I thought it felt fine in terms of sleeving. First sleeve was a little bit on the tighter side, but from there on, the sleeves didn't feel like they were getting to be too tight throughout. Now that we've sleeved up the cards, let's check for uniformity and consistency. It seems that the sleeves are uniformly wide and uniformly tall, so that is a nice plus. Ultra Pro during this era didn't always get that right, but this particular set of sleeves does seem to be correct, even though we have sourced them from two different packages within this one package. And looking over them, I didn't see any major defects or irregularities between these sleeves throughout. When you first get the sleeves, they are a little bit curled, and so I was worried that it would curl the cards, but once the cards are in them, they stand pretty straight. The other interesting thing that I noticed right off the bat was that while I was sleeving them, the deck actually held together pretty well. A lot of times when you sleeve a deck of cards, the deck will fall over as you are stacking them on top of each other, but this one actually held together pretty well. So that was an interesting thing to note. Now that I have sleeved the cards, I'm going to shuffle them 100 times and see how long it takes. Ready, set, go. Okay, it took 5 minutes and 21 seconds to shuffle these 100 times. And that is the very slow speed of 3.21 seconds per shuffle. It's actually abysmally slow. Like, you can really feel how long it takes to shuffle these sleeves, in part because the seams on these sleeves are actually quite thick, and you can even see them from the side how thick these seams are. So when they hit each other from the side, they often have a tendency to bounce or to be rejected by the other thick seams that exist. And one thing to note is that even when you're holding these sleeves naked, you can tell that the edges are thicker than the center here. And so that's one way you can tell just how thick these seams are, which means that it is not actually that good for mass shuffling because there is a lot of resistance and you have to work pretty well to keep your sleeves quite loose in order to slide them in. So I don't think these sleeves handle very well, especially in terms of mass shuffling. I'm going to try one riffle shuffle here to see how well it does on a side riffle. Okay, the side riffle does feel a little better. Now, I'm not very good at fast side riffling, so it's not going to be me that's going to be shuffling that way. But it's possible that if you are very, very proficient at side riffling, these may be better for you. These may not have as much a shuffling disadvantage as they would if you were doing a mass shuffle. So these are definitely more for display than for regular use because the shuffling is just so bad and the corners are actually quite pokey, and so it does feel quite uncomfortable as you're shuffling them, although they did wear down quite a bit over the use as well. So I now am concerned about their long-term durability. Let's go ahead and take a look at these sleeves to see how they held up after 100 shuffles. Okay, the surfaces held up pretty well. There doesn't seem to be too much dulling or scratching going on, so that's a plus to the durability of these sleeves. However, I did notice that some of the corners and the edges got a little bit chipped, and it's quite minuscule right now, but I do think that that does mean that the edges themselves, the seams, are potentially less durable than the faces. And with a lot of these types of illustrated sleeves, I noticed that they are made with a backing, and so if the seams get a little bit damaged, then the illustration actually tends to peel right off the sleeve. I don't know how it's fused together in terms of mechanically, but you can see some of the foil bits poking through on the sides here, and you can see that the chipping has already started to occur with even just the first 100 shuffles. And so I don't actually have a lot of hope for the long-term durability of these sleeves, and I think that because of that, you might really need to consider using these as only sometimes use sleeves for decks that only see occasional use, or sleeves for decks that you just want to have look nice and not really play with much at all. Because of the handling and durability issues, I'm very wary to suggest that these sleeves be used for regular use. Now it's time for the shake test. I've stacked these cards into a 60 card deck, and I'm going to shake the table they're on for 2 seconds to see how well it holds up. Ready, set, go. Alright, it budged a little, but it held together pretty well. It even held its form quite well, and I could tell that was going to happen right when I was sleeving the cards and the deck didn't actually topple over. There's a very good amount of stick to these sleeves. Now for the draw test, I'm going to draw 3 cards off the top and see how well this deck holds up. Ready, set, go. Okay, so even despite the fact that the cards have a lot of good stick to each other and don't really lose their shape, this is a very rigid deck right now, you can see that it's quite easy to pick up the cards as well. So in terms of that, the handling is actually quite good. The stacking onto the deck and also the ability to draw the cards off the top is a plus. So there are some pluses with these sleeves. You get some pretty cool artwork if you are into the artwork. They're expensive, and so you do have to think carefully about whether or not that artwork is worth it for you. But if it is, then you get some really cool artwork. And the gloss of the sleeves and the surfaces on the front and the back are actually quite sturdy and seem to not lose their luster too quickly. So that is a plus to the sleeves as well. The downsides of the sleeves are a little bit more considerable, and they come in multiple forms. One of the downsides of the sleeve, and I think the most major downside of the sleeve, is that these sleeves are really hard to shuffle. They bounce off each other and they are not easy to get going in terms of a mass shuffle. I can't tell you whether or not they shuffle very quickly, but I wouldn't have a lot of hope that they do, just because even if when you are able to penetrate the side and you have a really good slip, there is a little bit of friction that causes you to have to work to get the sleeves to push into each other. So I think that the handling does make these sleeves not amazingly useful for the purpose of regular play, and so it may be more of a showpiece. And that's also further evidenced by the fact that the sleeves have some major durability issues in terms of potential damage to the seams of the sleeve, which may eventually cause this artwork to peel off. Because even in my initial testing, I've noticed that there is some little bits of chipping happening to the seams of the sleeve and the corners, and I feel like with heavy repeated use, these sleeves are not going to hold up. As you can see on this side, there is actually a noticeable amount of wear already happening to the seams here. For that reason, I think that these sleeves are primarily for aesthetic purpose, and yes, I do think they'll provide your card some bit of protection, but it's going to be at the cost of the usability of the deck overall. And I would suggest that you only use these sleeves if you really like the artwork and you are not going to be using the sleeved deck very frequently, because I think that the usability issues and the durability issues are going to cause a long-term problem. It's good that Ultra Pro has moved away from this particular style of sleeve, and so I would make sure to pay attention to this packaging. And if you are looking for Ultra Pro sleeves, and it comes in this particular packaging with this red sticker that says new formulation, improved seal strength, and improved lamination, that you consider very carefully how much you like this art and whether that art is worth both the price tag and the decreased usability and the decreased durability of those sleeves. So that was Ultra Pro's Magic the Gathering Illustrated Deck Protector Sleeves. Let me know what your thoughts are about these sleeves in the comments below. If you have any experience with these sleeves, I have surveys in the description box below. Go ahead and click on those links to share your experience with their consistency and durability, and that will be put on the Init Games' resource page. If this video was helpful to you, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more such videos, hit subscribe. This was Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.